for a little while, and seemed to have happened shortly after my birthday and around, well, I guess a week later, around the time my kids left from the first visit of the summer, which is about 10 days long. Well, 7 days, we've extended it to 10. And yeah, I've had a lot going on between my ears. And a mentor of mine from a few years back, when I was really going through it, told me the most dangerous place on earth is the 6 inches between our ears. And that still rings true. I didn't even read chapter 5, I guess, in my book Monday night. Didn't do it last night either. I'm gonna try to do that this afternoon before I go off to class this evening. But I got serious about legacy planning since I turned another year old, and I've been a thorn in my family senior's side with respect to avoiding the probate with a will only and getting a trust in place in order to sidestep the courts. And I was on another webinar it was Monday night actually, recently, and their metric was you can expect to spend 5% of an estate's value, market value, going through probate. And whenever I did the Google research on it, that was in a contested type situation. But there is no limit on what the legal system can charge someone to navigate said victim through the courts, to take care of a person's estate. And if they die intestate, that's a whole another problem in and of itself. So you're looking at 12 to 1,500 hours of effort by a legal professional at the rate of $300 to $500 an hour. And of course, the less you pay, the more likely the service is going to be shoddier, or they're going to cash flow you longer in order to make up for the decreased hourly rate. So I latched onto that 5% number for myself, and in running the numbers. Also, another context, I talked to another firm last summer, and at that time they had 3 different tiers of pricing, and the quarter ounce of gold range, and the half ounce of gold range, and then 3/4 ounce of gold range. But this summer they repriced it, and they priced it just below the current market value of an ounce of gold. And I asked him if he knew what the price of gold was today, and he said no. So they're just doing that by gut feeling, right? And that rate was about a little more than half of my current monthly income amount. So I decided to pull the trigger for myself and getting a trust in place. And hey there, Ryan McNutt, welcome back, brother. I'm having some more serious conversation today about estate planning and that kind of stuff. So if you want to hang around for that, feel free. If you got questions, please ask. Otherwise, this may be pretty boring to you. For me, it's fascinating though. And anyways, I invested a month's worth of my current income to getting a trust in place and to getting that trust funded, because a lot of people apparently have lawyers draft up trusts and they remain unfunded, meaning none of their personal assets are moved into the trust, and therefore whatever isn't moved into it and what is not covered by the will by default go into probate. So not only did they have the cost of the trust, they also have the additional cost of going through probate because they did not fund the trust or complete the necessary activities in order to protect their family. I see the sarcasm in your voice. This has become a real stressor for me because in all likelihood, my parents and or uncles' estate dissolution is going to fall on my shoulders, and I do not want a damn thing to do with their fucking courts at all. So if that happens, then my price is going to be a premium for having to do that, because I was begging them to take a different path and use some of the cash they have sit loaned to banks unsecured to put a trust in place to take care of their affairs post death. They're all unhealthy. They're all using big medicine and being cash flowed by big medicine to just exist, and it's fucking sad. But it is what it is. The system's got them. They've been programmed and continue to be programmed into the status quo of the normies, right, and the sheeple. And there's nothing I can do to change that. So anyhow, I came across another advertisement this morning that was off of the trust research I was doing, and it talked about passwords and how a password list in 2026 is not equal to a password list in 2005. And he's right. They say the first and most important code that anyone in your small circle of trustworthy people has to be your phone passcode. And this morning I shared mine with 7 people who are in my fairly close circle of trust and whom very rarely, if ever, have access to my phone. Like, they can get in there, but I'll immediately see what's going on because I've got secondary and tertiary and even quintessary, I don't know, 5th level layers of notification and security on all my stuff. But yeah, it's hot in here. I got to jump out for a minute. I sent them my PIN. That's the same to both of my phones, as well as my bank account PINs, so that they will have immediate access to that in the case that I'm no longer able to provide it. Even if I'm medically incapacitated, they'll have those numbers. So an extended aunt, a close aunt, both parents, stepmother, same age stepsister, and biological sister all have that information now. So I've got multiple layers of people who know the information to where they can act through the trauma of losing a loved one. And I also put a little gut punch in there to them that's saying, I'm trying to act like a responsible adult. Hint, hint, you should do the same. That I didn't call that out explicitly. I'm sure they took it that way. They're probably pissed, but you know, I'm willing to be pissed at because people aren't managing their affairs because they don't know, right? We don't know. I didn't know that. I should have known that, but I didn't. And therefore, I change. I do things different as I learn. So the point is, the passcode is going to be required to access the phone in order to access email accounts and text messages in order to authorize approval into asset accounts, right? Or account assets, banking, insurance, even interface with the lawyer who drafted the trust, right? All that's going to be through email and or telephone. And that comes to another point, labeling your contacts with search words that are going to be easy and all-inclusive to pull up in a phone search in order for somebody to navigate your phone in a timely manner in order to find access to those professionals they're going to need to talk to in the case of an early demise. So in addition to getting the trust and asset planning in place, they're also going to create a medical power of attorney for me, a limited power of attorney for dealing with the legal institutions that I have affairs through, and also spelling out what has been moved to the trust as well as what is still in my name via will that will transfer to the trust upon death. So therefore, you know, this is a constantly required management thing. And right now my plan is to revisit it annually on my birth month in June in order to, well, if I change my passwords, update the passwords to my phone to re-verify password access for accounts, and especially government accounts, right, man? The damn government accounts make you change your password every 90 days. And it is burdensome, extremely burdensome that they make you do that. Usually I just reset mine when I need to get into it. But again, that requires access to the telephone and or the Google app authenticator and or email in order to get the temporary PIN in order to access the account. This is a program, a life program that's got to be managed. And we are so distracted by the bread and circus today, even me, right? I'm watching content on the markets, on generating future income, but only recently have I pivoted myself toward protecting what I've got as opposed to trying to make more. How do we protect what we've got? And yeah, I spent more than I saved in the past. Well, that's not true because I bought silver when it got down to about $61 an ounce. It was at 58.5, but they were charging the premium that day, so I couldn't get it for anything less than 61, which is fine because that's, I think, 40 No, that's over. That's like 60% off its high from January, off that peak at 120. Good purchase in my mind. Could it go lower? Yeah. Will I be able to buy it when it's lower? Probably not. It'll probably go to the insiders who already have real good relationships and spend big money with the dealers. So being able to get an ounce of silver at 55, 50, 45, even $40 an ounce, won't be able to do it, and the premiums will be so high that you'll be paying in the 50s most likely anyways, if not the 60s. So I went ahead with no regrets and dumped a half month's worth of salary into silver last month, and now I'm good for a while. Could I go buy more? Yeah, but there's an argument because I just read a book this past week called The Entropy Trap, where the physicist Ryder makes a very good argument that you've got to stay diversified. You got to have access to currency units, and not in the banks either, because the banks can issue you bank stock against the savings that you put in there, and you may not have access to that currency for months or years. And when you do get access to it again, it's not going to buy jack squat. So you're talking about 5x, 10x, 20x costs once you get access to that currency again. So having all your eggs in one basket has always been a bad idea. And that doesn't mean just diversify between stocks and bonds either, because that's one asset in the financial markets. What about real estate? What about legacy planning? Right, that's an investment, not an asset. Life insurance. It's financial markets, a little bit different area. Same idea applies though. Your payouts for your insurance coverages aren't going to buy in 30 years what they buy today. For example, my father purchased a $50,000 coverage life insurance policy, whole policy, back in the mid 80s, when that was about equal to a year of his salary. Well, today he would need something way, way higher, like in the neighborhood of maybe 200,000 for the purchasing power to buy today what 50,000 bought in 1985. And he's continuing to pay the monthly premium on that. I think he's put in about 35,000 in premiums over the course of those 40 years for a $50,000 payout. So that's a $15,000 influx nominally, right? 15, that'd be about 200% return. Is that right? 15 into 35, 15 to 15. No, that's only a 33. Yeah, that's a 100% return on a $35,000 investment. He's going to get 50%. He's going to get 50% of his investment back. So he's going to get 50% of what he invested, right? So he's going to get 35,000 from the 50,000 payout plus another 15,000, which is less than half of what he's invested. So about 45% of what he paid in, but the purchasing power is much, much less. So for the purpose of the insurance, it was a bad purchase, right? Now I've got an index universal life policy that I bought back in 2020 or so, and my currency was locked up for 10 years, and at the time I didn't know anything about investing, didn't know the difference between stocks and bonds, didn't know jack crap. And for me at the time, it was a good investment. Today though, I need access to that capital instead. And yeah, I could have bought a term life insurance with the knowledge that only 2% or less of all term policies ever pay out the coverage. All the rest of them expire. Therefore, it's a huge cash flow source for the businesses who operate insurance, both mutual and public or corporately owned, publicly owned insurance companies. They just make a killing on term insurance. So I went the whole life or index universal life route. And yeah, there's pros and cons to that too. But I can take loans out against that money, but I can't extract that money without extreme, like right now, it's in the mid 5 figures, and I'd only get below 4 figures back out of it if I decided to close the policy today. So I gotta wait a few more years if I want to close that policy. And it's in the $1 million range coverage too, and it increases as well. So my point about all this is, this shit's hard. This shit's complicated. I'm fortunate that I don't have to bust my ass in a 8 to 6 or a 9 to 5 job every day, 5 days a week. Come home exhausted at the end of the day, not wanting to deal with this hard work, and then not having any desire to deal with it on a weekend when you're trying to recover and get ready for the next week. So I feel for all you folks out there that are struggling in the working world, and I also feel for all you folks that are struggling in the out of work world without any sort of security blanket. Like, that sucks. It sucks. My concern is purchasing power of my income. Right? I know that it's decreasing over the course of time. My struggle is finding a way to protect myself against that, as well as set my kids up for success somehow, some way. But we don't have any control over what anybody else does. And unless somebody comes asking for your advice, there's not even need to waste your breath giving it, because they're not going to listen to it, or they think you're a freaking wacko, don't know what you're talking about. Just fine too. Live and learn, right? Live and learn. One thing we do know though is that the rich and powerful at the top that are pulling on these strings, that are managing our lives, they know what's going on, and they've got the same headaches though, trying to protect their wealth and power and influence, right? So the point is, the world's hard, so choose your hard. All right, choose your hard. Choose your hard. Choose your family's hard. Do you want your family to go through probate and have your assets locked up for 9 to 18 months, and at least 5% of those assets go to strangers who are just cash flowing your family because they can? Or do you want to spend up front a lot less comparatively to what would be spent to set up a trust and a will that transfers all individual assets into the trust upon death, in order to make it easier for your family to celebrate your life and not be resentful that you didn't do it different because you were too busy, distracted with the bread and circus, TV, sports, the weather, whatever, recreation, depression, all that stuff. So yeah, that's what's been on my mind. Relationships too. Choose your hard, right? It's hard being alone, and it's hard being with somebody. Having a partner's hard too. Choose your hard. We're social creatures though, so choose your hard. I made a business offer to a young lady earlier this week who's in a hell of a predicament, and she's young. Well, she's out of my age range of what I'd be looking for a relationship, but I'm always in the market for a business deal, and that's still hanging out there for her to decide if it's her only path, or if it's a partial path that she wants to use while the offer's on the table. So, I'm always in the market for a business deal, especially when it involves getting one over on the government, legally, of course. But all right. Well, let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts on this fairly boring but extremely important matter and topic. So if somebody who has some inkling of care about you does not have a pin to your electronic devices, you might think about remedying that today, right? And then if they fall out of your circle, change your pin. Easy. Just change the numbers around. No, let somebody else know. Welcome in. Who's back with me? I don't know who jumped back in here. We had a pretty serious discussion today, so not really entertainment per se, but stuff that's been on my mind going on. Appreciate the like. Sarah Burgess, welcome. Yeah, I appreciate you liking, Sarah Burgess. All right, well, I'm going to close it out for now. Jump back in the steam room for a bit. So let's stay weird together. See you, Liberty. Outcast Commander is out.